Hey there viewers, welcome back to the Gaffigan Automotive channel. Today we got an 08 Ford Taurus. It's getting a tune-up, so it's getting all 6 spark plugs replaced. It's also getting an ignition coil. Long story short, it had a misfire fault code. We drove the crap out of this thing. We could not duplicate it. Left the decision to the customer. Hey, he wanted to do a tune-up anyways. Most likely it's a coil. Left it up to them. They decided if you're going to do the tune-up, put 1 coil in it on the number 3 cylinder and be done with it. So we're going to dive into it. The front 3 cylinders are super easy to do. I'll show you that. The rear 3 you have to pull the upper intake manifold off to do. It's not crazy complicated, but I'll show you the steps to do it. So let's get into it. Okay, so the front 3 cylinders, super easy to get to. We're going to take the fresh air PCV line off, and I'll show you how to do that. So it's hooked here to the valve cover. It also hooks here to the intake tube for the engine. Now we're going to take the intake tube off of this to do the rear, so we're just going to disconnect this now. The way it works is you grab this little tab right here, push it that way, and wiggle the line off. Now be careful, you don't want to break this line. It is a plastic. We're just going to rotate it up and out of the way like that. Now you can see we can get to all 3 of our coils. Okay, so first things first, we'll just unplug them. They have a red lock on the connector. You pull back on it. Super simple. And then push in, unplug. Let me show you that lock. Super simple. This red lock here. You're gonna push back on it like that. Push down on this middle tab. Unplug the connector. There you go. Now it's best to do tune-ups or replacing spark plugs on engines when the engine is cold, when the cylinder head is cold. Less of a chance of pulling threads. It is an 8mm headed, or an 8mm socket. Okay. Just pull them up and out, wiggle. There's 1 ignition coil. And the spark plugs live right down in those holes. Now if you have a bunch of debris built up in the hole or whatever, it's a good idea to blow it out before you pull the plugs. These ones are perfectly clean on the inside. So we'll grab a socket. Looks like it's going to be a 5/8 spark plug socket. Okay, here's 1 spark plug. These are Motorcraft plugs. Ford plugs. Get the camera to focus on that. Motorcraft. They don't look awful. Focus. There we go. They don't look terrible. They've been in there a while. Probably original on this car. Buzz the rest of these out of here. Okay. It's that simple. All the threads look really good. Didn't have really any rust or anything on them. So let's grab the new plugs. Okay, we're going back in, of course. Factory Motorcraft plugs, what they call for. They're double platinum, I believe. They are pre-gapped. You do not have to set the gap on them. Just don't drop them or hit the end of them or you mess up the gap that is already on it. What I like to do, and most people do, some people may have a problem with it, but they're crazy. Do a little bit of anti-seize on the threads, just to help for next time. You don't need to go crazy with it. Although it doesn't matter how much you use, you will get it everywhere, because that's just how anti-seize works. I like to start all of my plugs all the way down by hand until they touch, and then we'll tighten them up with a ratchet. Yeah, we drove this thing probably close to an hour worth of drive time. Different speeds, different loads. Checked it cold, checked it hot. Freeway cruising speeds. AC on, AC off. I mean, anything I could think of, I could not get it to misfire again. But being a Ford, 99% positive it's gonna end up being a coil anyways. But that's not our decision. We inform the customer from experience, coils are what cause most of the misfires on these. Can't verify it. Like if you want to change the plugs anyways, there's no extra labor to put a new coil in it. He said go ahead and do it. So hopefully this will take care of the problem. If not, we'll have to get it to come back when we can duplicate it, which they are totally okay with. All right, so you run down to the seat, just give it a little oomph. Do not break a plug off in your cylinder head. Be very upset with yourself. Okay, so that's that. Next, all right, get these coils back in. What I like to do, we have some dielectric grease from CRC. Just put a little bit in the end of the coil. You can't see what I'm doing. Just put a little bit in the end of the coil. Dielectric grease keeps moisture out, dissipates moisture. So, you know, you go to pressure wash your engine or something crazy like that. So dielectric grease around the coil could be a good thing. Do that to all three of them. In there. Like I said, this isn't rocket science. The only part on a tune-up for this car that can be a challenge is the fact that you have to pull the intake for the back cylinders. It's not a hard intake to pull. Don't believe you have to drain the coolant on it either. So just unhook some lines, undo some bolts, lift it up and out of there. The intake gaskets on these are reusable, but there's a caveat to that. If your car's got 200,000 miles and you pull the intake off, it's probably worth changing the gaskets. This one's right at 100. They're considered reusable. We're gonna reuse them. Depending, of course. If I look at them and decide that they don't look great or they're all hard and flat, of course we'll change them. But 9 times out of 10, intake gaskets totally fine. All right. All the way down to factory spec. Just like that. Plug all three of them back in. Do not forget to push the red lock tab back up after you plug it in. Plug it in until it clicks. Click. Click. Okay, that's the front three done. That's it. Half your tune-up's done. Little tip: if you're having trouble getting your connectors to plug all the way in, you'll push and you'll push and you'll push as hard as you can. It won't click. Take some compressed air and blow the connector out. They'll get dust and stuff packed into them, or maybe the seals will roll a little bit and they won't want to close all the way. But I found you blow them out with compressed air, they'll plug in every time. Okay, now let's get ready to get this intake out of here. Should be a little more of a challenge. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do, just to make life easier on ourselves, we're gonna get the intake tube out of the way. So we're not fighting it because it's hooked to the throttle body. So we're gonna start with the nice airflow. It also has a red lock tab. Same principle, pull it back, unplug, there we go. We're gonna undo the air filter lid clips. And this vacuum line here, grab both portions, grab this T and grab the hose, twist it till you hear it break free, and then twist and pull off. Now, granted, you're dealing with a lot of plastic here, so on a higher mileage vehicle, everything's gonna be brittle, so just be very mindful of that. You're taking it apart. Now, 8mm for the clamp on the throttle body. Loosen that up. Wiggle it, twist it, get the rubber to break free from the throttle body. Pull it up, pull it out. So the next step we're gonna do, we're gonna get the throttle body unplugged. Again, a red clip, unplug throttle body. Have a purge line here. Let's see if you can see that. Yep. So you see the yellow tab. The way you unhook these, you push in, pull out, and that's loose. On the other side of the intake, you'll see here, there is a hose clamp push retainer that's holding it in. We'll pop that out too. Get up under it, pop it out. Now, something I like to do, if it's easy enough to get to, because things break so often, on the other side of the engine is where the other end of this hooks. Unhook it and take that line out of the way, just because it will break, and that'll make your day very long and upsetting, because now you have to buy the customer a purge line that he didn't need when he came in. Okay, we have left, we have the PCV hose in the back, just a hose clamp. We have the brake booster line back in here. Both those are just compression type hose clamps, so you just squeeze them to pull them off. And then we have one mount bolt here. We have the mount bolts across that actually bolted to the lower intake, and the intake manifold comes off. These hose clamps can kind of be a pain, especially depending on the angle that they're sitting at, and this one it's sitting at an angle. It'll be a pain. Oh, this also has a connector for the PCV. I believe it's a heated PCV, just below the hose. So just reach back there, you'll feel some wires running to it. There is no lock tab on this one, although there's probably supposed to be. It's gone. Just push in the connector, unlock it. We'll get in there, get that off. See if we can get you a better camera angle, show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so if you look back here, this is the PCV line here. Got my fingers on, here's the hose clamp. This is a heated PCV, so just on the bottom side of it, down where you can kind of see my finger, is where the connector plugs in. So you undo that, take this clamp loose, and get the hose off of here. We'll just leave that sitting there. And then we look underneath, there's one mount bolt for the intake. We have that one's hard to see in the dark. There's the brake booster hose here. Take that off. And then the mount bolts across the front that hold it to the lower intake, and this intake should pop right off of there. Let me check. We're also going to take these hoses off the front. Just pop them out of their holders. And then this wire, which is actually a part of this. So, easier thing to do. Grab our releasing tool. Just come up under these with your releasing tool. Pop these ones out too. Same style, Christmas tree type retainer. They're a pain, unbelievably strong for what they are. Just get all three of those up and out. There. Now this sits out of the way, something we don't need to fight. So we're gonna get the PCV line, the brake booster line off. Pick this bad boy up. There's one other bolt all the way underneath. Get you a shot of that. Right there, that bracket is to the intake. We're gonna take that bolt out as well. Okay, because of the angle of this hose clamp, I'm gonna use this fancy hose clamp tool to get to it. If it'll let me. Just like that. Just wiggle that hose off while squeezing the clamp. Okay, there's a PCV line. This other one's also angled in a really bad way. Use just a pair of needle nose to grab that. You'll fight this clamp a little. It's just hard to get any tools on it because of where it's located. There we go. Just slide it back on the hose, grab the hose, twist the hose to break its connection free. Okay. You hear a little crack, a little pop. That's when the rubber breaks free. Slide it out of the way. Okay. So should be all the hoses, should be all the wires off of our intake. A bunch of 8mm bolts. They can fall off of there. Before we get going crazy, I'm gonna cover up our intake, or our throttle body, and we're gonna blow the top of this off because now we're gonna have an open hole straight to the engine. So let me go grab an air hose. Okay, got our intake covered up. If you guys don't know, I'm using a Snap-on 1/4" electric ratchet. It's a fantastic tool. Probably my most used tool actually, but I'm using the Snap-on wobbly 1/4" sockets. They're super expensive, but they kind of pay for themselves when you see how easy they can make a lot of things. Get this bottom clamp, that bottom hold down bracket. Keep track of our hardware. And we're gonna get this top one. It's a little longer, just bear that in mind. This one is going to stay with the manifold. Looks like, yeah, it's got a retainer on it. So that one will stay with the manifold. You just want to make sure it's loose. Okay. There is this very aggressive thread bolt. It's over here. There's a wiring harness and it holds a bracket to the intake. So pop that off. You won't miss it. My suggestion to you is if the bolt can be actually pulled, lifted out of something, out of a manifold or whatever, it's not being retained in like that top bolt, take it out. Because if you don't and you have to twist this manifold all crazy, you may drop a bolt into your engine. That would suck. Avoid doing that. Looks like we got one more Christmas tree fastener on this side. Pulling the wire and harness down. Right there. There she goes. Just kind of squeeze that manifold up, or that wire up out of the way. Okay. 2 bolts left. One here. One up top. Okay, get these up and out of here. Now there should not be any more brackets holding it. This will find out. Oh, do we have 2 bolts here? No. There she goes. So, get your wires out of the way. Just be gentle with her. Take it out. Just like that. Okay, this is a good point to stop everything you're doing. Once you get that manifold out of your hands, get something to plug these holes with. I'm gonna use some shop towels and just stuff them in there. Plug it up. You do not. I have dropped a nut in an engine and had to pull the cylinder head off to get to it. And that is something you cannot charge a customer. You have to eat that cost, or you should eat that cost. Personally, I don't feel like paying for that right now. So, stuff it in there. Obviously, don't shove it so far down in there you can't get it back out. And then also, when you go to take it back out, make sure you get all of it. Double, triple check yourself. We had an incident when I worked at Caterpillar. Someone pulled a radiator out of a truck. We were rebuilding the engine, so they decided to get the radiator. I don't remember why we pulled the radiator out. Oh, it was out, and someone took a handful of shop rags and shoved it in a lower radiator hose on the radiator itself, because we left that hooked up. We had 2 shifts. We had a swing shift and a day shift, and one guy pulled the radiator out, the other guy put it in. He got what he thought was all the rags out, but there were about 3 of them still stuffed inside the radiator. That truck drove about 10,000 miles, overheated 100 different times, plugged up oil cooler several times. It got a new radiator, new oil cooler. It was bad. So these little steps like this, plugging up your intake with some towels, they're huge what they save you in the long run. Okay, and now as you can see, back cylinders, super easy to get to, and this is exactly what it was in the front. You unplug them, take the bolts out, change the plugs. The cylinder we're gonna put the new coil on is number 3. This one here, so we're actually gonna mark that real quick. I get very busy at this shop and I get interrupted a lot, so I'll forget and misplace stuff, so we're just gonna put a big X on that so we know that one's not going back in. Well, I think most of you probably get the gist of it at this point. I guess I could show putting the intake back on. I may speed it up. It's the exact reverse order how you took it off in the first place. Alright everybody, I hope you enjoyed the video. That is how you change the spark plugs on a 3.5 liter Ford. Naturally aspirated, this isn't the turbocharged engine. Those are a little bit different. But yeah, that's it. So if you guys liked it, leave a like, subscribe, see if we can come up with something else to do. Catch you guys in the next one. Thanks.